If you love earthly gemstones with natural artwork in every bead, this bracelet is for you. Today I'll be creating a bracelet using Australian Picture Jasper, along with hematite, crystal spacers, and Miyuki seed beads. So let's take a look at the materials you will need, with links in the description below if you need to purchase any of those extras. Bracelet, we need to have our thread and needles set and ready to go. Now I'm using the beige color today because of the colors of the beads and everything. I feel like the beige kind of is hidden a little bit better than some of the other colors. You can also use green if you don't have beige on hand. So I have about 1.5 wingspans of thread on here, so that is approximately 8 to 9 feet of thread, somewhere around in there. That's probably going to be a little bit more than what I'm going to need, but if you're going to make the same size bracelet, I would suggest to either start off with about that, or if you're not comfortable with that length, start off with the length that you're comfortable with, and you'll just know that you'll have to add some extra at the end. So I'm first going to put a stop bead on. I got one of the 8/0s out, and I'm just going to pull it down to the end of the thread. Now I'm going to leave enough down here at the bottom. I'm going to use my watch as a gauge, so that way I have plenty of room to be able to attach my needle down here at the very beginning of the thread, at the end of the bracelet, and weave it back through and tie some knots off and everything. We're going to go down this bracelet once, and we're not going to come back down it. So, so leave enough thread so that way you can tie on your needle or put your needle back on and tie it off at the end. So we're going to first start off with our wire guard. Now I've already actually pinched this wire guard together. We're going to be starting off with our 15/0s also, so this is the first bead that you'll need out. And I've already pinched the end of the wire guard together. Now you can always leave the wire guard open. This is what it looked like beforehand. It's about that same, whoops, that's not going to help if it doesn't stay on your finger. There we go. About that same size, about that same opening width and everything. So all you do is you just pinch it closed with your fingers. Typically you can get it with your fingers. If it's a little bit more rough, like if you're using some stainless steel ones, then you can always use some of your pliers or your nylon jaw pliers or something like that, and just ever so slightly touch and try to pinch it down in at the tip there. When you're using 15/0s, I usually, ow, don't poke yourself. I usually suggest to do that so that way the wire guard kind of sits a little bit better on the 15/0 like that compared to what it would look like if you did not pinch them. So it's not an absolute you have to do this, but I just prefer to do it that way. So we're going to start off with the wire guard. I'm going to go ahead and go up one side of the wire guard to go down the other, and then I'm going to add my first 15/0 after that. So one up the one side, going down the other, and then I always pinch the wire guard ever so slightly in between my fingers, so that way it helps to keep the thread to end up in that channel there at the top of the wire guard. Now if you don't want to use the wire guards, perfectly up to you. You can attach your clasp in any way that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up my first of my 15s. Then I'm going to go through my wire guard one more time. I'm going to have at least 2 thread pass. If you want to go through 3 times, perfectly fine. You can do that as well. You just have to be very careful with the size of your needle, because sometimes the 15s, especially this particular one, is a silver lined, I think it's Duracoat. Yeah, it's Duracoat, but it's got a silver line on it also. So it kind of makes the bead just be a little bit smaller on the interior portion of the bead, the inside interior diameter of it. So sometimes you risk the chance of breaking your beads. So just be careful with it. You may have to move to a size 12 if you have to, because I'm using size 11 because that's my comfortable one. So I'm going to go back through the 11/0 or the 15/0, and then I'm going to start my first of my 3 double raw units. So I'm going to pick up 4 more 15s. Then we're going to go through that 15 one more time. This is why I'm saying that you have to be careful with how many thread pass you're going through. And it's already starting to get kind of tight. There we go. Alright, so to continue your double raw unit, you always want to make sure you go through that first bead first. Don't forget to go through the first bead. Sometimes I forget to do that, and I can't figure out why my double raw unit is so wonky looking, but that's usually what it is that you forgot to go through the first bead. Then you pick up another 15, you go through your second bead that you added in that loop, and then that puts that one into a little picot off to the left. Pick up another 15, go through your next one in your loop, which was bead number 3. That'll be your picot there at the top. This is a little wonky down here. Don't worry about that, because once you get your thread needle on over here, then you can tighten that up a little bit to make it look a little bit better at the very end. So back to the double raw unit, and then pick up your last of your 15s, and then go through bead number 4 in that loop. And then that puts all 4 of your picots on there, because that first bead that we went through was the picot bead that's down here at the bottom. So I'm going to skip that first bead, because I'm going to try to come back through and then use that bead to be able to tie off at the end. So I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to go through the next bead in line. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to get up to that top picot bead, the one that's on the opposite of where we started off. So I'm going through the next one in line, trying to hold it up close so you can see where I'm going, just like that. And then I'm coming through that top picot bead, which is what you're wanting to do. And then I'll try to adjust this so you can kind of see what it's supposed to look like at the end. So that's going to be similar to what it's going to look like. So now we're going to add our second of our 3 double raw units using the 15-ohs. So whenever you're adding your next double raw unit in the same size bead, you're going to do the same step. If you're changing from your 15 to your 11s, then we're going to do something slightly different. So right now we're just going to pick up our 4 seed beads, and we're going to start our next loop. So we're going to go back through that same 15 that's sitting there on the point, and then, like I said before, don't forget to go back through your first bead, and then go ahead and do the rest of your double raw unit. And after you get done with that second one, do a third one, and then once you get done with that third one, come back and I'll show you how that extra little step that we're going to do, because we're going to move from our 15s to our 11-ohs after that. Before we move on to the 11-ohs, I wanted to mention that if at the very end of the bracelet, if you get down to the end and you get everything set and ready to go, don't tie off either end just yet. You'll want to attach your clasp first and then test it out and see if it's at a good length. The reason for that is that it's going to be extremely easy to take off the stop bead, take off the thread through your wire guard here, and then add more of your 15-0 double raw units to add length if you need to add length. Same thing with decreasing length. If it's too big for you, then you can do the same thing. Just be careful with taking off some of the 15-ohs and stuff like that there again, because you might break some of the beads. But at least that's something that I wanted to add on, just in case you have to either add on length and or take it away. Alright, so next step, we're going to add our 11-ohs. Oop, there's a wonky bead. We'll put that one off to the side. So we're going to pick up an 11-oh because we're coming out of that peak, or that topmost 15-oh. We're going to square stitch on this 11-oh. So pick up the 11-oh, we're going to go straight through the 15, and then that's going to put that bead kind of sort of sitting on top of it. It's probably going to look wonky like that. So I'm going to twist it around a little bit until it kind of sits just about where it's sitting on top of the bead of the 15-oh. Then I'm going to go through this bead one more time. So I'm going to go through the 11, go back through the 15, and then end up going back through the 11 one more time. So this is, ow, poked myself again. This is where having those beads, ooh, yeah, and I'm bleeding. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to take care of my finger real quick off screen. But, so yeah, go ahead and get through that, and then we're going to go back through that 11-oh. So we're going to be coming back out that 11-oh. Meet you back in just a second. taken care of. So we've got our first bead on of the 11-0, and then the thread and needle are coming out of that right now. So then you just pick up your 4 beads, and we're going to do another double raw unit. So make yourself a circle. Maybe. There we go. So make yourself a circle. Don't forget to go through that first bead that you just added on that circle, which is on the left hand side right now. And then you start adding your picots around. Then go ahead and add this double raw unit and add one more. So we're going to have 3 of the 15s, we're going to have 2 of the 11s. And then meet me back and I will show you how to add the next one. So now we have the 3 of our 15 double raw units and then 2 of our 11s. So now it's time to add our 1 unit of the 8-0s. So go ahead and pick up one of your 8-0s. We're going to square stitch this one on. So we're coming out of that topmost bead on that second double raw unit in the 11-0s. And we're going to do the same thing and square stitch this guy on. So once it's sitting on top of it, just make sure it looks like it's sitting correctly. Go back through the 8-0 one more time, go back through the 11-0, and then end up by coming out through your 8-0. Whoops. I'm really trying to poke myself a lot today. It's like the 5th time I've poked myself. Alright, so now you're coming out of your 8-0. So we're going to go ahead and finish this one off, just so you can see the difference. And I'll do it pretty quick here. So put the 4 on, and then put your picot on the right, and then the picot on the top, and the picot on the left. Once you get the hang of this stitch, it's pretty simple. It's pretty quick to do. And then I always skip that that first bead that we went through and just go back through the first bead of the 4 that we added. And when you do that, that helps to kind of tighten up that double raw stitch to where it looks more like a diamond and not so pokey like that. So we're going to get out through this top bead up here. And then that should be the way your bracelet looks so far. So go ahead and get to that spot, then meet me back and get your 4mm gemstones out. We'll need those next. Now it's time to start adding some gemstones. So we're going to add our 4mm gemstone in the same fashion that we've been doing with the square stitch, but we're going to add extra beads with it along this time. So we're going to pick up 2 of our 15s, 1 11, your first 4mm gemstone, then another 11 and 2 more 15s. So that's what you have on there. And then we're going to go through this 8-0 seed bead like we've been doing. So it's square stitch, but you're using more than just 1 bead at a time. Then we're going to go back through these beads a second time like we've been doing with the double raw units, and then end up coming out through the gemstone. And the guy that does my lawn is actually here working on our lawn and our neighbor's lawn right now. So he's got his lawnmower actually parked right outside my window. So sometime or another it's going to start. So I'm hoping I'm hoping I get that in a break and not while my camera's recording. But just in case you hear a really, really loud noise, that's probably what it is that the lawnmower is starting. Alright, so now we have that. So now we're going to make a normal raw unit. To do this, we're going to put 11-0 seed beads in between. So we've already got our first of our gemstones there, so we need an 11-0, and then pick up 3 more gemstones with 11-0s on either end. So just make sure you don't forget to add that last 11-0. And then, so that way you have 4 11s. There we go. 4 11s and 3 more gemstones. And then go back through your gemstone that you already have there. And then we're going to go back through these beads one more time. The only reason why I'm doing multiple passes through a lot of these beads is mainly because we are only going down this bracelet one time and we're not coming back. You can always come back. You can always just do one pass through everything and then come back and do your second pass later. I just feel like doing 2 thread paths through, especially the beads that are the ones that are really large, like when we get to the 6mm and the 8mm gemstones, it starts to get really kind of hard to be able to move through the beads and everything, and it not be too loose while you're trying to work on everything. So this is where you're going to want to decide how you want your bracelet to look. Do you want your gemstone in the center to be facing in this direction with the beads where the needle is going, or do you want it to go in this direction? What I'm going to do is I'm going to have it start off in this direction, go to the center of the bracelet, and then on the other side of the bracelet it's going to go in this direction. So I'm going to start off going this way, just because that's where my needle is right now. I'm going to go ahead and proceed through the 11-0. And then I'm going to pick up the beads to add my little decoration on top of the raw unit. And that will be, looking at my cheat over here, my little sample, I'm picking up 115, 2 11s, my 4mm gemstone, 2 11s, 115. So that is what I have on the needle so far. Then I'm going to go to the 11-0 seed bead in the raw unit that's directly across from it, so diagonal over here. Doesn't matter which way that you go through the bead, just make sure you go through the bead. And that these beads stay on top of your design. And then that's what it looks like on the side. Now we're going to pick up another 15, and then we're going to go back through the 11s. So we're going to skip that 15 that's on there. So you're going to have two 15s sitting on the side. We're going to go back through the 11s, the gemstone, and the 2 11s on the other side. Give a nice little tug before you go any further, so that way there's no thread showing or anything. And then that's the way the 15s look on the edge. Then we're going to do the same thing on this side. We already have the 15 on the right hand side of this seed bead, so now we need to put a 15 on the left hand side of the seed bead. And then now this side looks similar to the other side. So now we need to get set up to move on to our 6mm beads. So since we've already gone through the raw unit once, or twice now actually, we're going to continue through the bottom of the raw unit, the seed bead, and then come out the one on the right hand side. So go ahead and get that portion finished and get your 6mm out. We'll need those next. Alright, so let's move from our 4mm to our 6mm. So we're going to square stitch on our 6mm using extra beads again. We're going to pick up 2 11s this time, and an 8, and then your first of your 6mm. Then another 8 and 2 11s. So that's what we have. Finally getting some rain. We're supposed to have some really bad storms come through tonight, so I'm trying to get this recorded as quick as I can. Go back through your 4mm gemstone there in the raw unit, the one that we were starting out in. And then we're going to go back through these beads one more time. So I'm trying to get this all recorded today, and then that way, excuse me, if that way if we end up losing power later tonight or tomorrow sometime, because we're not quite sure when it's all going to start and when the bad part's going to get here. But at least that way I could be working on editing and not recording and having to figure out, okay, what part did my camera record and so on. So, and then make sure that we're going through the 6mm gemstone so we can add the rest of the 6mm in the raw unit. So when we're doing the 6mm, there you go. Then that's set up just like that. When we're doing the 6mm, we're going to put an 8-0 in between. So pick up four 8-0s and 3 more 6mm beads. I love these beads. Look at this one, where it's brown on that side, brownish red, and then it's so creamy looking on that side. I love them. They're so pretty. And then this one is just brownish, grayish. It's got a little bit of gray in it. It's so neat. I love gemstones. Alright, so I got my 4 beads, 4 seed beads, and my 3 more gemstones, and I have a knot because I'm starting off with so much thread. And that's the one bad thing about having a lot of thread on your needle, is that sometimes you end up with knots. So you just have to be careful with it. And then this is what I was talking about as far as only going through it just one time. See how loose this is? See, for me, that makes it really difficult for me to make sure that my tension is good enough to where things are going to stay really well. So that's why I say go through this at least one more time. When you're getting to the bigger beads like this, you may have to go through it a third time even. It just kind of depends on your tension. It depends on how what type of thread you're using also. Wildfire, Fire Lion, and then the thicker parts of thicker types of dragon thread, like the size 8 dragon thread, then you probably only have to go through it twice. If you're using like Miyuki thread or KO or something like that, then you may have to go through it 3, maybe even 4 times to get it to a really good tension. Alright, so I want all these beads on this side to be going in this direction. So I'm going to go ahead and go through that first 8-0 again. And then I'm going to add this one, my last 6mm, in the center in a similar fashion that we did previous. And I'm just making sure, yep, making sure I started off with 11-0, and I did. So 11-0, 2 8s. Pick up your next 6mm, 2 8s, and then an 11. So it's similar to what we did with the 4mm. We're just using the bigger size beads on this one. Then we're going to go to this bead that's off to the opposite side of the raw unit. Go through that. Make sure the beads stay on the top. And then we're going to pick up another 11-0 and then go back through the 8-0s, the gemstone. Man, this one's really cool. And then the 8-0s on the other side. Give it a nice little tug. If you feel like you need to also, once you get this other 11-0 on here, you can go back through these beads one more time too. In fact, I'll do that to show you what I mean. And then pick up the 11-0 and then go through the 8-0 down here. So that way you have the 2 11-0s sitting there. And then this is what I was talking about. Go ahead and go back through the 11-0, the 8-0s, gemstone, 8-0s, and 11-0 on this side. And then go through the 11-0 that's on the raw unit. That's an 8-0, sorry. Go through the 8-0 that's on the raw unit. Then go back up the 11-0 on this end, the 8-0s again, the gemstone, the 8-0s on the other side, and then just make sure you go through the opposite 11-0, so the one that's on the left this time, if you're beading in the same direction I am. And then now we go through the 8-0 and get ourselves set up for the next one. So go through the 8-0, the next gemstone that's on the bottom of the raw unit, the 8-0 that's in between. Alright, so that clip was a little abrupt because apparently my card was full on my camera. So this is where you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with your thread and needle coming out of that right boast bead on your raw unit using your 6mm. So now we're going to need our 8mm out. We're going to need our hematite spacers and then the little crystal spacer. We're going to put this in the center. So those are the ones that you'll need out this time. So let's do our square stitch onto our 8mm. To do that, we're going to use just the 8mm. We're going to use just the 8-0s this time. So we're going to pick up 3 of our 8-0s, one of our 8mm beads, and 3 more 8-0s. And I'm a little bit out of breath. I had to save the kitty cat from the puppy dog just then. So, that was fun. So we're going to go back through the 6mm right there. You might be able to hear her fussing out there because she wants to come back in the room and I told her no. And then we're going to go back through these beads at least one more time. I might do it actually 2 more times because these are rather large beads. And I just want to make sure everything is stable. Oh darn. There we go. But at least 2 thread pass through the beads will be enough. Sometimes you have to put that third one in there. That's probably going to be fine, actually. I'll just leave it at that. So there is our 8mm square stitch done with our extra beads. So go back up through the first set of 8/0 seed beads and get through that 8mm, and then we'll start adding the rest of the 8mm in the raw stitch. Now the ones that we're going to put on in between the 8mm this time is going to be a 15, one of our hematite spacers or rondelles, and then another 15. That's going to replace the single seed beads that we've been using on the 4 and the 6mm beads. Then we're going to pick up one of our 8mm beads. So 15 hematite, 15 8mm. And then do that one more time and then end with your 15 hematite and 15. It's another really cool bead right there. So neat. Alright, and then, okay, now that we have all the beads on there, then we're going to go back through the 8mm that's already there, going in the same direction, and then we're going to go through all these beads one more time, just like we've been doing, and then we're going to end up coming back through that first 8mm gemstone that we started off with. Just make sure you get through all your beads, and that you're not skipping any. If you skip them, it's not the end of the world, you just will see a little bit of a thread path sitting there. So just try to make sure that you're going through all your beads. And end up coming through this 8mm bead here. And then that is where we're going to add our design here in the center. We're not going to go through the extra beads here on the side or on this side. We're going to use the 2 beads on this part of the raw unit, so this one and this one. Alright, so to add that decoration in the center, we want to add, alright, so it's 3 15s, 2 of our 11s, 1 of our 8s, so 3 15s, 2 11s, 1 8. Pick up your crystal rondelle and then add the opposite. 1 8, 2 11s, and 3 15s. And then pull that all the way down. So there is something that you can't see, it's not focusing. There we go. So 3 15s, 2 11s, and 8. Crystal rondelle, 8, 2 11s, and 3 15s. Then we're going to wrap through the same bead that we're on right now. Go ahead and go back through the first set of seed beads and come out the crystal rondelle. Make sure not to go back through the 8/0 that's on the other side of the crystal rondelle. You want to skip that. And then just kind of give it a nice little small tug so that way everything kind of sits like this. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side, but this time we're only taking one side at a time. So we're going to pick up an 8, 2 11s, and 3 15s. We're already coming out of the crystal rondelle, so we just need to go through the 8mm on the right hand side. And then we need to add the beads on this side. So now we have 3 15s, 2 11s, and an 8. And then we're going to go back through the crystal rondelle. And I'm going to go ahead and proceed through the 8, 2 11s, and the 15 from the first section. Whoops, you can't see that. From the first section right here. So then I'm going to end up coming back through that first 8/0 one more time. We've got one more thread path to go through these extra beads here in the center. So I went through that last 15, and now I'm going through the 8mm. So see how this kind of looks a little wonky here in the center where it's not really straight and it's not really sitting very nicely? We're going to try to make that look a little bit better. So we're going to go back through these first set of seed beads again, Make sure you don't go through the rondelle this time, the crystal rondelle. You want to make sure that you're coming out of the 8/0 seed bead over here off to the side. So go through those first set of seed beads. From here, we're going to pick up another 15/0. Then we're going to go down the set of seed beads on this side. Oh, now Captain is barking at somebody. He's probably chasing the kitty cat again. Alright. And I'm trying to move my rondelle over a little bit. There we go. Maybe. Okay. I'm going to see if I can get that fixed. Go through your 8mm bead. Then we're going to go up through the 3/11s, or 3/15s, 2/11s, and the 8/0 on this side. Add your 15 on this side. Hopefully this will help kind of get it to tighten up some because it seems really loose. Alright. See what it looks like after I get all that tightened. Alright, that's better. It's not exactly what I was hoping for though. Let's see. Trying to finagle it a little bit because the first one I did turned out much easier, much nicer looking than this one's turning out. So I may just have to play with this off screen a little bit to get it to work right. But I'm just kind of finagling things through, trying to see if I can get it to sit a little bit better. Yeah, it just doesn't want to sit in the right way. And it could be the crystal, it could be the spacer. The spacer bead may be a little wonky, it may not be exactly there in the center. You know what, I'm just going to leave it as is. This is my sample, and this is how the sample turned out. So that's how it looked the first time. That's what I was like, okay, this is perfect, this works. This one's a little wonky, it's sitting off to the side just a little bit. It's okay though. It's handmade, it is what it is. Alright, so we're going to go back through the 8mm again, then we're going to go around the edge to get ourselves over here. And then that will get us set up for the next section, which is essentially going to be a mirror image of the first part that we did, other than we're going to be putting our decoration on in an opposite fashion. Still going to be a mirror image, but we're going to have to put it on in a different bead set. So go ahead and get yourself out of this bead over here off to the right, then meet me back. Have your 6mm back out again, because you'll need your last 5 of those, and I'll show you the next part. Alright, so off screen I went ahead and went back through this round of beads one more time. So I went back through the this little section, went back through the crystal rondelle and back over this OA again, and that kind of tightened it up a little bit better. So now that it looks like the rondelle is sitting a little bit more in, better in the center portion. So just in case you have that problem, that's all I did. So on this side we're going to go and we're going to do the opposite of what we did over here on this side. So we used 8/0s to connect the 8mm to the 6mm. So pick up 3 of your 8/0s, your 6mm, and 3 8s. Go back through your 8mm and then do the same thing that we've been doing. So go back up the 3 seed beads, back through the 6mm again, and get your thread pass through there, at least the 2, if you need to, 3 or 4, depending on what type of thread you're using, like we were talking about earlier. And make sure that you go back through your seed beads this way and then end up through your 6mm gemstone again. Now on this one we added 8mm, darn it, I did it again, 8/0 seed beads in between the 6mm. So pick up your 4 8/0 seed beads and your 3 of your 6mm and finish out your raw unit. Then go through that one more time. And then we'll get set up to where we add our extra beads. And then I'll let you get set up for the addition of the 4mm. And we're almost done with our bracelet. Alright, so this one is one that, since they were facing in this direction, they were going like this. I want these to go in this direction, like this. So since I'm down here on this part, then I'm going to come out of this seed bead over here. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the seed bead, the gemstone, and then come out the seed bead in between the bottom and the right side. Then that's where I'm going to add my extra beads. So one of the 11s, 2 of the 8s, your 6mm gemstone, 2 8s, and an 11. Then we're going to go to the opposite beads. We're going to go to the one that's over here off to the top left side. And then pull that down. There again, just make sure that your beads are still on top of everything. Pick up an 11-0. Skip the 11-0 that we just added. Go through the 8s, the gemstone, the 8s. And then add your next 11-0 to finish this out on this side, like this. You can't see that. There we go. And then that's the way it looks. So you got your 11s and your 8s, and then the 11s and the 8s on that side. I'm going to go back through these beads one more time, and then when I come out, I'm going to end up with my thread needle coming out over here, and I will meet you back and show you that next step one more time. So this is where we're at so far. So let's go ahead and add our 4mm. So we need an 8 and 2 11-0s, then a 4mm, 2 11s, and an 8. I think that was right. Yep, 8 and 2 11s. Okay. And then go back through your 6mm. Then go back through those beads one more time. So this is just kind of a refresher of what we did in the very beginning. It's just the opposite. And just to give you an idea of where you need to go in order to add your decoration if you're doing the decoration in the same way that I am. And then go back through and end up coming out of your 4mm there. And then this is a reminder that we put the 11-0s in between the beads. So pick up 4 more 11-0s in between are going to be your gemstones. And just leave 1 more of your 4mm gemstones there so we can use that as our decoration of the raw unit. Go back through all these beads. Just make sure every time you go through beads that you're going through them and you're giving a nice little small tug. Not too tight, but you want it snug enough to where you don't see very much of the thread coming through. And then we want to get back over here to the seed bead over here again. So go through the next seed bead in line, the gemstone on the bottom, and the seed bead in between the bottom and the right hand side of the raw unit. Oh, come on now. There we go. And then now we're going to add our last gemstone on the bracelet. And this was with one of the 15s, 2 11s, your 4mm, 2 11s, and 1 15. We're coming out of the bottom right hand corner. We want to go to the top left hand corner, go through that bead, pull it down, make sure all the beads are on the top, pick up another 15, go back through the 11s, the gemstone and the 11s. We're going to skip the 15s, the first ones that we added. And then make sure you give it a nice little tug, make sure everything's tight. Pick up another 15 and go through the 11 down here on the bottom. And then now you're set up, or almost set up. You got to go through the gemstone first. So go through this gemstone. And then now you're set up for transitioning back into your 8-0 seed beads. So now we're going to go back into making the raw units over here. So I'm just going to get you started with this because this is the same process that we've already gone through. Just as a reminder though, if you're transitioning from one size to another, you're going to square stitch on that first bead. If you're doing 2 or 3, like the 11 O's or the 15 O's, or if you have to do different amounts of sizes depending on what length of bracelet that you need, then you're going to use that topmost bead or that tipmost bead in that next double wall unit. So just as a reminder for that. So I'll get you set up and then let you finish out the bracelet. We're going to pick up an 11 and then 2 15s and then our first 8-0. So then 2 more 15s and an 11. There's that. And then we're going to round through the 4mm gemstone. We're going to go through these beads one more time. Sounds like my dogs are playing with each other and somebody just got bit or something. And then we're going to go back through the gemstone and get our 2 thread pass through it. Go back up the 11, the 15s, come out the 8, and then now you're set up to start your next double raw unit by adding the 4 8s, make your loop, and then continue on. So go ahead and do that. And then if you're doing the same thing I did over here, we did 1 8, 2 11s, and 3 15s, and then we added our wire guard in the same fashion that we did at the very beginning. So go ahead and get that done, then tie off your thread. Oh wait, hold on, try it on first, then tie off your thread if you like the length. If you don't like the length, like I had said in a couple of clips ago, then you can always take this portion off if you need to add some more to it, or if you need to take off some of these if it's too big for you. So just make sure that whatever you end up doing on this side is going to be the same on this side as well. So meet me back and then we'll finish up this bracelet. Alright, so let's get this thing finished up. I've already got part of my clasp already attached. I'm using the heart magnetic clasp that came with the 2 lobsters on either end. So I'm taking the lobsters off, but I'm using the jump rings that are on the clasp to attach it. So this is all I did. I just opened up the jump ring by twisting it open, took off the lobster. Just make sure that your clasp is facing upwards, and then move your bracelet around, and then close it up. And then after that is done, make sure I get this one closed really good too. That one looked a little weird. Sometimes using the magnetic clasps, it's kind of hard to make sure that your jump rings are closed completely because the clasp will attach to your pliers. And then, let's see, how do you open it? There we go. This is what it looks like on the wrist. And then this ends up being just about perfect size for me. It's just slightly a little bit big. So there is the first part of it. That's what it looks like on the back side. And this is how loose it is. I can go down just a little bit on my wrist. So this is probably closer to about a 7 to 7.5 inch bracelet. So there is our bracelet for the Gemstone Orphanage Australian Picture Jasper. And here's our finished bracelet using those beautiful Australian Picture Jasper beads. I love how the mix of bead sizes, hematite, and seed beads really highlight the natural patterns in the stones. Let me know what you think of the design in the comments. And be sure you're subscribed because I'll be creating more projects with Gemstone Orphanage collections soon.